People just don't care. And you got to understand, addicts not thinking this might be my last injection. They don't think that way. They just want to get high. They don't care. They don't test the drug to see, what proportion is heroin versus fentanyl. They don't care. They get what they want. They shoot it up as they did before, and if there's just a little bit of fentanyl in there, that can take you out. But an addict doesn't sit there and think, oh, gee, this might be, I got to be careful. This might be my last, use before I die. They just don't think that way. It's a tiring thing. I mean, I'm still losing friends. Folks are still dying. Um, More and more each day, our recovery community is growing with folks in short-term recovery. And so the need is still there. The need is still great. Have we made it a dent? Possibly. But I don't think there's going to be a solution to the problem until we really understand what are the best avenues to take and how our money is best spent. Well, people, like I said, are looking for a short-term fix. That's not going to happen in recovery. You know, we're always going to battle with addiction. It's not going to go away. And so a lot of folks get discouraged when the coalition or even the recovery community goes a certain way. They might not necessarily agree with that way. You know, listen, there's multiple pathways to recovery. I get that. And we've got to be open to allowing ourselves to explore each and every avenue and determine whether or not that's going to be best for us, best for our focus and our time and our money. So, yes, people are getting discouraged. I talk to a lot of people who are just kind of tired, you know, and I get that. We always want to have that knight riding in on shining armor, and this is not one of those things. It's going to take us staying committed, staying determined, and staying focused. You know, they say that the drug of choice, if you will, changes every 5 to 6 years. That I don't think is going to hold true with the opiate crisis the way it is. And really, again, thinking about the one death in 2012, just because we only had one person die doesn't mean that the problem wasn't there before. When I pulled up into Winchester, it was 2012, and heroin, not necessarily laced with fentanyl. Fentanyl, I think that's kind of what changed things, but the heroin problem was there. I mean, it was there as much as it is today. I don't think, given the way society thinks about drugs and alcohol, I don't think that's going to change. I really don't. You know, the one thing about heroin that a lot of people don't understand is it's one of those drugs that completely takes a person out of reality. You know, folks today have a hard time adapting to their circumstances. A lot of folks today are looking for a quick fix, a way out, and I think heroin is always going to be that option. You know, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. You know, we see a little bit of a resurgence in cocaine, but I still think that heroin is going to be the drug of choice for a while, and we're always going to have this problem. folks in recovery, like me, um, have seen how medically assisted treatment works. We deal with a lot of people who've tried Suboxone and methadone to save them from a heroin addiction, if you will. And although it might work in the short term, we're finding that in the long term, it doesn't address the problem. See, and I know that medically assisted treatment states that we give you a drug, we give you a Suboxone or a methadone, and I know they say that you still need to address those things that are causing you to use, those internal things. But the problem is, I think sometimes is that folks get comfortable, if you will, with being okay. Suboxone and methadone takes the detox away. That's all it really does, is it prevents detox from occurring. When I got clean, I had to detox. It was one of the worst things that I've ever had to endure. I think we're robbing people of that. People need to experience, I think, that pain. They have to experience the physical withdrawal. Because quite frankly, today, whenever I think about using or I'm tempted to use, I think about what it was like to have to come off that drug. And I never want to do that again. And so I think with the medically assisted treatment, I think, and again, there's two camps, and I'm not willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The jury's still out on medically assisted treatment for me. But I also know that one of the greatest benefits I have as a recovering addict is that I was able to withdraw from a horrible drug, come out successful, and begin to work on myself. And, I'm not dependent upon a drug now. I don't have to take something in the morning to prevent the DTs from happening. I'm completely drug-free. I'm completely alcohol-free. And there's something to say about that, because I know that I don't want to lose what I have. And I don't want to experience what I went through to get off that drug in the first place. When I got saved, if you will, as a Christian, I totally recognized addiction as a moral failing. I thought there was, and I believed that there was sin in folks' life that they succumbed to, and they allowed to overtake their life. And my thought was that, an addict had a choice to pick up, and rightfully so. As an addict, I had a choice to pick up or not. But something happened when I picked up. It was more intense than just a moral failing. It was something that I had to do. It overtook me. It was something that I had to do. I had to use. It wasn't necessarily because I was doing anything right or wrong, but it was something that was kind of, I feel like it was inbred in me. And so, obviously, I was a successful pastor for many years, but at one point I allowed myself to pick up again. And as a result, I recognized that my life had changed forever. Was that a moral failing? No, I do believe that alcohol and drug abuse are classified right when we say it's a disease. Because it's something, to pick up, I have the choice, I get it. But after that, I don't have the choice anymore. It's something that overtakes me. Now, where you might have a bad day and, you might, maybe have a drink. The thing about the difference between you and me is that you usually stop. I don't stop. It's hard for me to try to educate someone who has never been where I've been. It's one of the hardest things to do. It's hard for folks to relate to me. It's hard for folks to relate to an addict. Because in their minds, they say to themselves, well, just say no. Just stop using. Well, it's not that simple. I wish it was. But I can't stop using. I can't stop I think this is going to be a problem that's going to be around for a long time. I really, really do. The door does not stop opening to the fact that folks are battling with a disease or with a drug issue. I don't see it slowing down. I really don't. Law enforcement's doing the best they can to keep it off the streets, but as long as there's a supply, there'll be a demand. And heroin is cheap. You can get it very easily. I mean, I can walk down the walking wall, and I do this quite often with my wife. And I often tell my wife while we're walking, I'll point out someone they're selling. This person over here has some. I mean, I know as an addict, I know who's carrying drugs. I know who's carrying paraphernalia. I can just it's kind of like a sixth sense that I have. So I mean, if I had a bad day, all I'd have to do is step out of my apartment, walk down the walking mall, and within 5 minutes I can get drugs. Just by walking down the walking mall.
Is that true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so again, I'm telling you, it's as long as there's a supply, there will be a demand. And I don't think there's anything we can do about the supply. Well, I think we can when it comes to prescription medicine. I do believe that we're making great strides there. I think that the doctors and the hospitals are finally getting there. They're acting in gear and starting to really realize that they're over medicating at times. But as far as your heroin off the street, like I said, it's readily available, and a lot of people get started on a pill or a prescription, but it's easily maintained by just walking down the street and finding somebody who's carrying. And again, we live on the I-81 corridor, and this is kind of like a stopping place for a lot of those who sell.
It's possible for heroin in New York City to make its way here.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Baltimore is where most people go, and because it's convenient and it's close, but there's also a great supply out there. Like when I stopped using drugs, my addiction became going to the gym, So there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about, that I don't obsess about going to the gym. I actually align my calendar in such a way where I can save an hour or two to go to the gym. Now, if I don't go to the gym that day, I feel bad about myself, and it overwhelms me, and it becomes an obsession, So where I used to have that problem with drugs, I've kind of switched it over to the gym. And now my obsession, my addiction is going to the gym. Now, obviously, I'm not in the best shape in the world, but just going there and doing something kind of relieves that craving, if you will. Am I free of drug and alcohol abuse? Yes. Am I free of an addiction? No. That's not my story. I always have to have something that's going to compensate. I do believe this community is at the forefront of the battle against drugs and alcohol abuse. When you compare it to the other cities, not only in the state but in the nation, I think that we're doing a great job with bringing awareness. My message would be that we can't lose heart so early in the battle. We think about the Civil War. It didn't last for a day or two. It didn't last for a week or two. It didn't last for a year or two. It lasted for a long time, and we're now trying to figure out what our battle plan is. We're trying to figure out what hills we can take, what battles we can win, and I think that we're adapting as we grow as a community. But I do caution anyone who really wants to make a difference when it comes to addiction and drug abuse and things like that, is that this is a long fight, and it was going to take some time, and we can't lose heart. Just because we're not doing what you think we should do doesn't mean that we're not doing anything. But we're trying our best to figure out what that is and how we can adapt that to work best for our community.